The hospital room became very quiet after he said yes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked at each other, almost like two people who had just woken up from a very long dream. 38 years of distance suddenly felt much smaller. She squeezed his hand gently. I never thought this moment would happen. He smiled softly. Neither did I. The heart monitor beside her bed made a steady sound. Beep, beep, beep. The sound reminded him where they were. A hospital, not a wedding hall, not a church, but somehow it still felt important. More important than any grand ceremony. She looked at him carefully. Are you sure? Yes. You've waited a long time for your life. So have you. She smiled again. Then she asked something that made him laugh. Do you think the hospital allows weddings? He looked around the room. White walls, medical machines. Nurses walking past the hallway. I guess we're about to find out. The next morning the story spread through the hospital. At first it started with one nurse. Then another. Soon the entire floor knew. A 60-year-old bank manager wanted to marry a patient. Right there in the hospital. The nurses whispered about it at the station. Some smiled, some shook their heads in disbelief, but most of them thought the same thing. It was beautiful. Later that afternoon, a nurse walked into the room holding a small bouquet. White flowers. Simple but elegant. She handed them to the woman in the bed. We heard you might be getting married, the nurse said. The woman looked surprised. Already? The nurse smiled. This hospital doesn't see love stories like this very often. Wow. Another nurse entered carrying something else, a small cake. Not fancy, but perfect for the moment. Soon a doctor stepped inside the room as well. He crossed his arms and smiled. I hear we're hosting a wedding today. The man laughed nervously. We didn't mean to cause trouble. The doctor shook his head. This isn't trouble. Then he said something that touched everyone in the room. This is the best reason to break hospital routine. Within an hour, the hospital room looked different. Flowers near the window, a small cake on the table. Nurses standing quietly near the door. Even a hospital chaplain arrived. The man stood beside the hospital bed. He adjusted his jacket. For the first time in decades, he felt nervous again. Not about work, not about life, about love. The chaplain spoke gently. Are you ready? He looked at her. She nodded. Her hospital bracelet still rested on her wrist, but her eyes were bright, hopeful. The chaplain began speaking. Life sometimes brings people together in unexpected ways. The nurses listened quietly. Sometimes it takes many years for a promise to find its way home. The man looked down at her hand in his. Then he spoke clearly. I promised I would find you. She smiled through tears. And you did, the chaplain nodded. Then let us begin. The ceremony was simple. No grand music, no long speeches. Just two people, two hearts, and a promise that had waited 38 years. Do you take her as your wife? He didn't hesitate. Yes. Do you take him as your husband? Why not? Say so. Her voice was soft, but certain. Yes. The chaplain smiled warmly. Then by the authority given to me, I pronounce you husband and wife. The nurses quietly clapped. One nurse wiped away tears. The doctor shook the man's hand. Congratulations. For a moment, the room felt full of light, hope, and something rare, proof that life can still surprise you. Even at 60, the man leaned forward and kissed her forehead gently. Not dramatic, not loud, just real, but the most surprising moment came later that evening. The doctor returned to the room holding a folder. His expression looked different this time, more thoughtful. Can we talk? The couple nodded. The doctor sat down. I reviewed your newest test results. The woman looked worried. I know what you are going to say, but the doctor shook his head. That's the strange part. He opened the folder. Your heart condition hasn't progressed the way we expected. She blinked in confusion. What do you mean? The doctor smiled slightly. Your condition is stable. The room became quiet again. And it's stable? The man asked. Yes, the doctor nodded. With treatment and care, you may have many more years. The woman stared at him. Years. The doctor laughed softly. Sometimes hope does interesting things to the body. The man squeezed her hand again. You hear that? She looked at him, still shocked. I thought I only had months. The doctor stood. Sometimes life surprises doctors too. Then he added one more sentence before leaving. I guess you two might have more time together than you thought. After he left, the room became peaceful again. The evening sun entered through the hospital window. She looked at him slowly. So, she smiled. I guess we're going to need a bigger wedding anniversary cake next year. He laughed. Probably. Then she said something thoughtful. You know what the strange part is? What? I spent almost 40 years believing I lost you. He looked at her gently. But love doesn't disappear just because time passes. She nodded. It waits. Outside the hospital window, the city lights slowly began to glow. Cars moved along the streets. People hurried home. Life continued like normal, but inside that hospital room, something extraordinary had happened. Two people who believed their story had ended long ago had just begun a new chapter. At 60, and the man who once believed he had missed his chance at love finally understood something powerful. Life does not follow a clock. Sometimes the most important moments arrive late, but when they arrive, they are worth the wait. And that is the story of the man who married at 60. But before you go, I want to ask you something. And do you believe love can come at any age? If you do, write, "It's never too late" in the comments. Because someone reading your comment today might need that reminder. And if this story touched your heart, stay with us, because sometimes the most powerful life stories are still waiting to be told.